just want to explain a little bit about the next session. It's a very little bit I'm going to explain, so don't worry. Got a microphone. What will they think I'm next? We thought, and it's a bit of a departure, and it might come as a bit of a shock to a few people, but we thought we'd try, just for a change, it's not going to be forced on you every time, we thought it might be an idea at a conference like this to talk about football. So after you've had a full day, and for some of us half a day yesterday as well, discussing all the worthy and important and crucial issues about ownership, about governance, about treatment, about customer service, about prices, we thought we'd focus for a little bit, at least, on what happens on the pitch with the ball. Now, it's a novel approach, and obviously, I'm reading your thoughts here. Kev, you can't do that, you know nothing. And clearly, we know nothing. So we have hired in a panel even, of experts, thanks to our partnership with the Blizzard magazine, which I recommend, absolutely marvellous football quality. And we have a panel of experts who are here to respond to your questions and educate and enlighten you about issues taking place on the pitch. I'm reliably informed they're all called Rory, which makes my job much, much easier. So I'll hand over to one of the Rorys who will introduce the other Rorys and take it away.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I am actually Rory, as anyone who was in the FFP thing will know. There's no other hosts available today. That's why I'm here again. Before I introduce everybody, I've got to read this about the Blizzard, as I've been told to. It says, the Blizzard offers long-form articles on all aspects of football. It's a quarterly publication in print and digital formats, and it's available on a pay-what-you-like basis. There's a free copy of issue 13 in today's delegate packs. It's very nicely bound, lovely font. For details, check out the website www.theblizzard.co.uk, and the next issue is due out on September the 5th. So to my left, in fact, no, to my right, immediately to my right, we have James Montague, who is the author of 31-0 and When Friday Comes, a study of football in the Middle East, a man who was once described legitimately as the Indiana Jones of football journalism. To my left with the hair is James Horncastle of BT Sport and The Guardian podcast, who I'm going to describe as the James Bond of football journalism. And over there is Miguel Delaney, who writes for The Independent, ESPN, and anyone else literally who will have him, and who is probably best described as the Pussy Galore of football journalism. And that's a pleasure, Miguel. So the obvious place to start with you, Miguel, because I know you were out in Brazil. The World Cup has just finished, you probably noticed. What's the one thing you'll take away from that tournament?
I suppose, I remember thinking of the night before the final, that the day before the final, doing a piece on it. That was probably a World Cup, for all the debate about the quality of it and whether it's the best World Cup ever. It was probably a World Cup with more stories than anything else. I mean, even if you look at the whole Messi, Maradona thing, the demise of Spain, Brazil, the rise of someone like James, Costa Rica. But yet after all that, I thought for it to end on what was pretty much the most predictable climax, which was Germany winning the World Cup, almost put a slightly bum though. And I think it's the one thing about the tournament that definitely, when I was thinking about what to write after Germany won it, there was no obvious story whether, well, they put in the right structures thanks to their immense wealth. And while that is something that everyone should copy, particularly England because they have the wealth, I think most of it can't go that far because, I mean, we're talking about one of the most powerful economies. And I thought it introduced something of the club game to the international game, which is just slightly off-putting.
Interesting, that's a more negative note than I was expecting.
But it wasn't very
told being told what a great tournament it was.
Well, but it was.
Miguel didn't mind the way it ended. But it's a film that you really enjoy and then a couple don't get together and you get with it.
Yeah.
Monty, you were also out there. What did you take from the World Cup?
That it worked. I was out in Brazil for the Confederations Cup in 2013 and it was, you know, I mean, every match you went to there were tens of thousands of people rioting outside the grounds, there was mass unhappiness at the way the tournament was being organised, the corruption, the fact that none of the infrastructure projects worked. And I went out there, and as you guys know, I went out there with a gas mask. Because last time there was so much tear gas, I had to, buy these painted decorators mask wherever I went. And this time I went with a fully fledged, proper Czech military gas mask, and I only found out afterwards it's actually illegal under Brazilian law to take it into the military.
Where do you buy a gas mask?
A friend of mine imports a lot of, it's a big business on eBay.
Really?
Yeah, gas masks, you can buy, it's really fake limbs, loads of stuff.
Fake live?
Military standard fake.
This is all available in the delegate pack.
So going to the
Let's take a diversion.
I took this gas mask, and there was some protest at the beginning. But what was kind of interesting was the fact that I was at the Bosnia just before the Bosnia-Iran game, and there was a protest outside, and they weren't allowed anywhere near the stadium, and there was maybe 500, 600 people there, and almost exactly a year previously there were 300,000 people there. And when these the riots went off, and the police used tear gas, and they used flash grenades, and they used rubber bullets on this small protest, actually when they were running away, the people came out of their houses and actually remonstrated with the protesters to not, they made the conscious decision, okay, we're angry, but now the World Cup's here, now the world's here, we've paid for this party, so let's at least enjoy it. So for me, I could see no way that the World Cup in Brazil could work. I could see no way after what I saw last year. And what's fascinating was that it did all come pretty much together at last. There was no massive disasters. It was in terms of the friendliness of people, in terms of getting up. I mean, it was such a big country, it was difficult to, for you to take a bus to the north, that's impossible. But it just worked. It worked really well, and those issues are still there, and they're going to be postponed to after the World Cup. But I was just absolutely shocked that the whole thing worked. And the football was good as well.
I think from my point of view, being in Brazil, the thing that stood out to me was we kind of, as the Western world, owe Brazil an apology, which is same with South Africa in 2010. As journalists, that we went on a security course beforehand, because obviously if we get killed, then the company feels some form of guilt for 2 or 3 days. And so they kind of educated us about how to behave in riots and all this stuff. As though the first thing you'd arrive in Brazil, you'd land, you'd be killed, and then that would be that. But it was same as South Africa, perfectly so.
And even more kind of minor things, like, I remember when all these horror stories about the airports being disaster, take airways, everything ran on time.
Yeah, to be honest, having tried to get into this country through Gatwick, someone should go to the Brazilian airports and learn some lessons.
Did the ESPN have panic buttons?
Panic buttons?
Apparently panic buttons.
I wasn't even a panic button.
There's one there.
James, what would you take from the World Cup?
Well, talking about order, the officiating of this World Cup, yellow cards, red cards were way down, and they allowed the play to sort of flow. And I think that in part contributed to what was a great group stage, a lot of attacking football, and also some of the sort of mass hysteria of some stories, which was Suarez was allowed to bite someone, and Neymar got kneed in the back, and both of those kind of stories from spiraled in terms of huge self-denial from the Uruguay perspective, the emotion of losing this kind of talismanic figure in Neymar, and how that probably contributed to Brazil being in a really fragile psychological state, and the referee spray as well.
Yeah, everyone loved the spray. Did we like the spray?
Yes.
If you've got some, you want some, okay? I think, it's an easy idea.
Shaving foam.
Just shaving foam. It's available in your delegate pack. The interesting thing, I think, maybe for James actually, we've had all this sort of great feeling about the Brazil World Cup, and it felt for a month as though international football really was back and it was better than club football. Are FIFA basically going to blow that now by having a World Cup in Russia and then Qatar?
There's a massive problem with the Russian World Cup. I mean, the British media is really focused on Qatar, and rightly so, because there's a huge problem with the Farrar, the slavery system that's going to be building a lot of the stadiums that we're going to, and obviously they've got themselves into a mess about timing. But what's interesting is that the Qataris themselves are actually trying to reform. They're at least give me a lip service. They're trying to put in standards for the buildings. They're responding to the pressure that maybe us as journalists or as governments are putting on the Qataris. The Russians are going to have none of that. So the thing that persuaded me last minute to go to the World Cup was Gaz Marcotti, who said this would probably be the last World Cup you could genuinely have any fun at. Because Russia 2018, if you can see where, and anyone I lived in Eastern Europe for the past 18 months, and you can see what Russian kind of policy is doing in the countries surrounding it, this problem is only going to get worse. And if you can imagine, even before what happened with MH17, if you think about the homophobia, the fact it's one of the most dangerous places in the world to be a journalist, the fact that democracy has basically been completely destroyed in that country, how can we then go there? I mean, and look at the Dutch. The Dutch FA are having a very real conversation at the moment about whether they will even enter a team to try and qualify for the 2018 World Cup final. And if that happens, and that's something they're going to take down 2-3 months down the line, maybe they at least start talking about 2-3 months down the line. If that happens, how can we possibly have a World Cup in Russia? We have one of the best teams in the world. Still so angry about what happened to Exist, not sending it. So this is a huge problem. But then who do you give it to? I mean, if you then give it to England, I mean, that will cause World War III if it's not really going to happen in that time.
Can they take it off the rookie? Should they take it off the rookie?
Well, I suppose it would come down to much more based decisions from FIFA, I imagine. Who's going to pay it? So I mean, we all know the Israel current that Bladder's in favour of, but he wants to give 2022 to USA. So I think there is an obvious fallback. Although, as James said,
if they did that, that would be, I mean, there would be a fourth spot, I think, possibly the third one. That would be such a politically insensitive move that I can't imagine. I mean, probably Australia might be the neutral option.
Well, but that then cuts across the fact that they want to do 2026 to China.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
Because it's too oceanic. I realise we're just talking amongst ourselves. But it does seem a shame to waste all of that goodwill that was generated by Brazil, and to an extent South Africa, where admittedly football wasn't as great, by going to Russia, a country that is seemingly bordering on pariah status in the world, particularly obviously this week after the MA17.
Would it be sacrilegious to get rid of the European Championship, get rid of the African Cup of Nations and the Copa America, and just have the World Cup every 2 years?
Yes, it would. Does anyone support that? The World Cup's great because of the rarity value.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And as with the Olympics, kind of this is your moment. You work 4 years towards it. I get all that, but because of the negativity going towards having to wait 4 years and it's Russia, having to wait 8 years and then it's Qatar, we just think, let's get around this a little bit. Let's put it somewhere else in the other 2 years. Just circumvent it.
You could do what the Olympics would have like a summer one, then a winter one. That might work. Play out on the snow. That might work.
When did you
just
find
have a
the
winter.
We've had 2 in a row. Seeing as the butterings from the floor, would anyone like to ask a question? This gentleman here would like to ask a question.
If you had a FIFA World Cup every 2 years, where do you think you'd find the hosts?
Well, I mean, as Miguel just mentioned,
The question was if you held the World Cup every 2 years, where would you find the host?
well, as Miguel was mentioning Qatar, if they were to take it away from there are fallback options, for example, like the US. I mean, in this country, the infrastructure already exists for us to host the World Cup right now, if we so chose, which would be quite good.
there are probably only 10 countries that actually hold 32-country event as well.
Yeah.
It's become so big and unwieldy. And I mean, we always talk about it. I think any German that's ever had an international tournament wouldn't be great if it was held in Germany because the ease of access, just everything runs so smoothly. Of course, that would take away some of the. I mean, one of the great things about the World Cup, and you said about the issue with Rory is, I think it's one of the pities of Euro 2020, despite some of the merit of passing the games round. But one of the great things with the World Cup is this, and you could be sense of walking down the Copacabana, say, in the tournament, this sense of a kind of a proper global festival where so many fans are, everyone comes to the one country. And it is so rare, even beyond football, it is one of the few genuine global parties now. I think even beyond the Olympics, because of the intensity of interaction and interest it creates. I should drop a point there. I waxed on.
No to the multi-capital European Championship, basically.
But then the argument in favour of that is that you're taking away the vast expense. I think the thing about South Africa, Brazil, Russia, Qatar is that FIFA have taken the World Cup to countries that maybe are outside the traditional.
Well, that's true, actually.
Traditional sort of the Western European nations and the United States.
But also to an extent, there are countries that you basically need to be able to fly around. Well, maybe not Germany, but yeah, the most recent 4: South Africa, Brazil, Russia, and Qatar. I mean, they're all essential, I suppose, if contained within one country. We're all like the team 2020 idea because you need to be able to travel a lot.
Apart from Qatar, where you'd be able to walk.
Well, yeah.
Not in the sun.
Not in the sun, no. Do we take it then that where do you stand on Qatar? Do you think Qatar will host 2022?
I can't see how they can get themselves out of the situation where there's a clash where they have it in the summer or a clash where they have it in the winter. I mean, it's clear that everybody doesn't want to have it in the summer, but if they move it to the winter, then it's what time in winter they're going to have it. And the European football clubs don't want it when Blatter wants it. And so this is, and then you can't have it when UEFA want it, because then you've got the Winter Olympics then as well. So I can't see how they can possibly do it. I mean,
the other aspect of it is, if they take it off Qatar, and because they made a vote in the structure in the first place, you would think they should actually have a re-vote for Russia, considering some countries didn't actually get involved in 2018 because of the fact they were holding on to the campaign in 2022.
That's true, but I mean, equally, I know this might be quite unpopular, but I'm quite happy that Qatar got 2022 World Cup. I wrote a book about Middle Eastern football, but that's not the
That's why.
Yeah, Quid's in. But the main thing is that for years I've been writing about this Farrar system of sponsorship, which means that millions of migrant workers get horrifically exploited in golf. This is something that I always mention about Manchester City fans, because they don't realise that their team is owned by the royal family of Abu Dhabi, part of the United Arab Emirates, where they have this horrific system as well, but there's no reform going on there at all. What the World Cup in 2022 has done is actually, and you talk about legacy, actually the legacy of the 2022 World Cup is that a slavery system that destroys the lives of millions of people, it is actually changed. And I'm all for that, and we can sort out the dates and work out all the other stuff around that, because that's actually a very real legacy that's better than probably the legacy of any World Cup can or ever will have.
So, I'm getting a signal from the back to say open up to the floor. So is there any more questions about the World Cup or about anything else? I don't know where the microphone is.
What's his name?
His name is James.
About Qatar. James, Qatar related. You're saying it's reforming the slavery system in Qatar.
Yeah.
What happens after?
Well, that's the thing.
When the media attention's gone away from Qatar, will it go back to what it was?
I mean, the good thing about voting so far in advance is that they've got a lot of time for the media spotlight. And you'd hope, yeah, who knows what happened? Will they lapse back into it? But if you think they're making these reforms now, and then in 10 years from now, 8 years from now, those are enshrined in Qatari law, they're there, they're being practiced, you hope that it will continue. You hope that will be a reform. But you've got to remember, Qatar's a country that's only 40 years old. You know, it's only existed since 73 or something like that, when it was formed. So yeah, maybe they could go back, but you can see that there is an actual reform process taking place because the World Cup is going there, which isn't happening with Russia or the promised reform process that might have taken place when China did the Olympics, the Beijing Olympics in 2008. This feels different. It sounds different. They're genuinely embarrassed by it. When you speak to people at the upper echelons of the bid committee and the people that are organising it, you know, they seem genuine. The problem is, unfortunately, it's a not very democratic, absolute monarchy. So, there's only so much they can do, but it seems to be something that is changing. If we talk about sort of changing football, promoting changing anything, this is something I'd at least like to see them have a chance. And even if it's 8 years where people are treated fairly, that's better than 0. Unfair.
There might be a question over in that corner, but there's a pillar in my way, so I don't know. It might be there's a hand attached to the pillar.
Sorry, just to go back to what was mentioned earlier, the panel some members of the panel were talking about the ethics of Russia holding the World Cup in 2018. I'm not supportive of the political situation in Russia, but would they held the situation at the London Olympics in the same regard, given Britain's invasion of Iraq many years ago, around the time the Games were brought to London?
Would anyone like to take on that conversation?
Yes, but it's what about Rory, isn't it? It's like, well, you've done this, what about this, so we shouldn't do anything. Let's try at least change one thing, rather than not change anything. If people want to say, yeah, do you know what? I'm no supporter of what was essentially an illegal invasion. There's up to 1 million people who've been killed because of what happened in Iraq, because of lies that were sold to the media. So, yeah, of course, I'm against that, everybody is, but that doesn't mean that you can't be against Russia, or the international community can't be against what's happening in Russia, because, then if we took that kind of opinion, then nothing would ever change ever. You've got to make, you fight the battles being fighting, and this is something that's, if England were hosting 2018 and we decided that we were going to, or the UK government decided to level parts of Belfast to get rid, because after some bombs went off in London, real IRA, then of course people would rightly have, say, well, we're not going to have the World Cup there. I can see that, but we should at least try and do something about the fact that this World Cup is taking place in a country which seems to be becoming more and more isolated and acting in a more irrational way.
One of the undercurrents, I remember, it's a slight tangent, but one of the undercurrents at the start of the World Cup was a debate about whether does staging a tournament actually help obscure problems or help a regime to kind of, is it a weight, or on the flip side, does it actually bring problems to light? I mean, secondly, I remember early on in the tournament as well, a Brazilian journalist friend and an English journalist friend arguing about how you're
Sounds like a joke.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, almost.
And with someone claiming expensive.
Yeah. But they were arguing about, like, Brazil, you come over here and you're writing all this, why don't you just stick to the football? We didn't write about this when the London 2012 was on, and the response was, well, you should have. You should, if you're travelling to the country, it's a duty as well to write about what goes on there.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Over there.
This is a question about football.
We don't have to talk about the World Cup or geopolitical issues, by the way. Ask someone about
This
that.
is going to be a question about the World Cup, although not the next one, the one after. Given that recently there was all these allegations about Qatar allegedly, bribing FIFA officials to get the World Cup, if there's an investigation and they're found guilty, should FIFA strip them of the World Cup and hand it to whoever finished second in that vote?
Did the Australians finish second? No, they don't. Yeah, the Australians, I know sort of this question marks over there was bribery.
They always finish second these days.
The Australians.
Not in the women's judo at the Commonwealth, they got gold.
Good for them.
Would that be enough to see just how strict you want?
I think, I mean, the amount of allegations that has been put together, particularly from this leak in the Sunday Times in May, is fairly compelling and should open up. Well, there should perhaps be a revote. But as with this whole bidding process, it's almost like who's best at being corrupt. It's a little bit like the Tour de France in like the sort of mid-90s, early 2000s, where if you enter into this race, you have to kind of make a decision that's kind of like, well, if I want to compete, I'm going to have to do it properly. And I think probably when you go into bidding for a major tournament, you have to kind of take into account that you're going to have to negotiate with some people who are going to make some fairly dodgy demands of you, etc. And that's the game you're going to play.
Like the law, I'm actually related there.
Yeah, no, I think none of us are getting this soon.
Yes.
Right.
To answer, yes, it should have. If it's proven, if Michael Garcia's report says that they've bribed people, then yes, of course they should have it taken away. But the Sunday Times allegations, I don't think there was no smoking gun there. I think there was nothing. Although it was well researched and it was very interesting, there wasn't a piece of evidence that said Qatar have done this. You know, it was all about bin Hammam. The money could have been for his re-election campaign. It seems small amounts of money to try to bribe people for a World Cup, which is a huge multi-billion-dollar event. So although it was interesting at some time, there was no killer, there was no knockout blow. So the Garcia report, I think, is the last chance, if there is any propriety to where they can also, you've got to think FIFA have to legally take this away from Qatar if that's the case. Because if they take it away, there's going to be all sorts of lawsuits, not just from Qatar, but from these huge global engineering firms who have already signed a lot of contracts and want pennies to build these stadiums. So
it feels a bit dirty now for international football, so let's return to something that's kind of pure and sweet and innocent, which is the Premier League. And the Football League, obviously. Miguel, are you excited about the new season, or like me, you were depressed because of what we've seen?
Yeah, still feeling a bit empty since coming back from Brazil. Still doesn't feel like the new season yet.
You're not being excited about seeing all those new kits?
No.
That's the best thing about leaked kits.
Sam,
You're that desperate to see your team's new kit.
Sam Alvarez came out with good comment there, kind of peaky again. They said something like they want me to play this attack football, which seems to be demanded these days.
James, how are you feeling about the new season? But at home and in Europe, of course, you have an Italian effort.
Yes. No, I'm not excited. I mean, one thing about the Premier League is, okay, it's lost probably its best player in the summer in Luis Suarez. That seems to often be the case with the Premier League. No sooner does someone become one of the leading players in the world than they leave inevitably for someone like Arsenal or Real Madrid. And the stars are other managers. So I mean, the hype around Louis van Gaal at the moment, and his, the stories about him, coming in at half-time at Bayern Munich and dropping his pants to show that he had balls. Arjen Robben, since revealing that he has a golden willy. I want to see if all this is true.
Wow.
He was good though, even during the World Cup when he was tackled by a few times. And it is actually entertaining to watch him just completely strip someone apart.
Yeah, but you know what the thing about Van Gaal in the World Cup, because I did a lot of holiday, and the thing about Van Gaal that annoyed me during the World Cup is his team did brilliantly against Spain, they were superb against Spain, set them up as right. They're terrible against Australia, and he recognises that, and then they beat Australia. But Australia is still Australia.
The one thing with that Spain game as well, because of the results and the nature of it, there's almost kind of this false perception of it there. I mean, had Spain gone 2-0 up early, which they should have done through David Silva, you could see them kind of just controlling the game. Holland got back into it through a wonder goal. Spain did not have to respond to that. I think it was the first time in 8 years where they've gone ahead and someone actually played them back. And from there, Holland just had that one player in Robben, which is enough to cut them apart. So it is amazing that these things can get distorted over such a short space of time.
Miguel is half Spanish. Anyway, so then they're rubbish against Australia and he fixed it. Then Mexico comes along and he uses a drench break and it was really, Van Gaal used a drench break, what a genius. And his tactical switch was put two up top and go long. Now if that was Sam Allardyce, we wouldn't be saying, oh, he's a brilliant manager, get him in manager. And then he gets out-coached against Costa Rica and then switches the goalkeeper and says, oh, that's a brilliant move. But it still relies on the goalkeeper actually saving the penalty. If the Costa Ricans go through the corner, then it doesn't work. Yeah. And then he produces a defensive masterclass against Holland, admittedly, but does not play attack. So he's trying to become the context in which Van Gaal is in England is that he's a genius who can do nothing wrong. But if you look at actually what he did, it's not that.
I do, but I suppose the expectation was before the tournament, which could go first round, still a very young team. I think most Eredivisie players they've had, well, I think they're a lot in 2006 and most of them didn't start, whereas here, it was still a disproportionately good achievement, even if, like every tournament, there's a lot of people.
You took a limited team far, which is what he's going to have to do with Man United.
Basically,
any questions about Premier League, Football League, the Eredivisie, Belgian second division? Any question here?
Straight up the Belgian second?
I know, yeah. It's in the Charleroi.
It was just a quick question. Rory mentioned James and his interest in Italian football, so I thought I'd latch onto that. I know it's not the sexiest league or most interesting one to follow, and I don't know if anybody are interested in this either. But I wanted to ask James about the coming season and in particularly Roma. I've been waiting, not being a fan of Roma, but I've been waiting a few seasons for them to mount a title challenge that doesn't just fall apart in the last month or two. Was quite excited when they signed Juan Turbi from Verona and Nangolan the season before. I was just wondering if you thought Juventus still looked very strong, even if they were to lose Arturo Vidal. They still look far stronger than anyone else in Serie A, but I just thought if you had any ideas or anything positive with regards to particularly Roma, but more how close the Serie A title race will be this season.
Yeah. I mean, the opinion of Serie A, even within Italy and certainly outside it, is that it's a league that is in decay, and that it's fallen away. I mean, it's now fifth in the UEFA rankings. It fell behind the Portuguese league, and yeah, it's rather than it being strong as a whole, there are these sort of one or two clubs which are sort of agents of change, modernised. One of them is Juventus with their new stadium, which opened 3 years ago, and Roma, who have been a little bit like Liverpool, were taken over by an American consortium, and have invested a lot of money and have done a lot of things right, and they certainly have reinforced to an extent where last season they had their best season ever, statistically. They picked up 85 points, which would be enough to win the Scudetto in 5 the last 6 years. They won more games than they ever had, and yet they still came up empty-handed because of this extraordinary season that Juventus had. I think they are already legitimate contenders. I think what's tipped everyone's opinion of them is the fact that Juventus' coach, Antonio Conte, has resigned. He was seen, I think, with likes of Diego Simeone and Jurgen Klopp, is one of the best coaches in Europe, so losing him is a big, big blow. And if they were to also sell one of their big names, i.e. Paul Pogba or Vidal, I think they would weaken, whereas Roma just keep going from strength to strength to strength. I think Ashley Cole's a really good signing for them, as you mentioned, Iturbe. And they have probably one of the best midfields in Europe with De Rossi, Pjanic and Strutnik. So, I mean, these are all players that are regularly linked with Manchester United. Vidal, Strutnik, etc., which gives you an impression of kind of great players they are. But yeah, no, I think they can. It's just how they manage sort of the second season syndrome under Garcia, because they did so well last year, will they do as well this time? And they're in the Champions League, they weren't in Europe last year. I think they even though they're probably inexperienced in the Champions League, I think they're not a dark horse, but they could be a surprise, even though they'll be in probably the fourth pot going into the groups, and they'll get a top group. So.
With down to my shot, James mentioned Ashley Cole. That makes it one English player in the world, just about. We want more, don't we? It's better for everyone if there's more English players in different leagues.
Completely. I mean, as globalised as the game is getting, like, different leagues have their own culture, and at an international level, basically helps round players off, makes them more kind of savvy if they have that experience elsewhere, beyond the Champions League. And that's, you almost see it in every single tournament. In that regard, I think it's actually amazing that there wasn't more. I thought England's World Cup was viewed very lightly in that sense.
Well, I found it kind of odd that sort of two or 3 weeks after England finished 30th out of 32 teams in the World Cup, that people are still talking about the English tax on players, and it applies actually not just in the Premier League but in the Football League as well, where you get a player who's had a couple of seasons and clubs decide that they're worth 5, 6, 7, 10 million quid. So then, well, why? Why is it? Why should, surely English players should be cheaper, because every time they come against anybody else, it's proving how rubbish they are.
No, don't forget Frank Lampard's going to be picking up some skills from the A-League this season.
Absolutely.
He's going to Australia. So it's interesting that the two teams that were the most insular, I think we had one player played abroad, and the only team that had all their players playing home was Russia.
Yeah.
I don't think it's coincidence both those teams probably say one of the worst teams in the world.
And coached by Capello.
Yes,
At least Cameroon were entertaining.
Well, yeah.
Possibly the worst World Cup campaign of all time. Off the pitch and on.
Zaire?
Zaire.
But even well, maybe actually. Yeah.
Was it Ghana with the kissing the brick of cash?
Yeah.
They got it from the outside.
And then he scored an own goal.
It was the best own goal of all time.
Yeah.
Like it's a backwards scuffed lob that went off the crossbar.
Alan Smith versus Wolves.
If he could do that for money, then he'd be incredible.
The one thing about Canada, I think they were the team whose results in the World Cup least reflected their performance. I think they had the most legitimate grievance about where they finished. Like, it could have been.
Should have beaten America, and they were probably, apart from Algeria, along with Algeria, probably very close against Germany.
Yeah. Any further questions? Yeah, our Portuguese friend. I hope someone knows something about Sporting Lisbon.
No, this time I'm going to talk about the national teams. It's funny that you talked about the globalization. And now you mentioned Ashley Cole as the first, maybe the only English guy playing abroad? Or
only high profile.
Only obviously. The lower leagues players. Welsh and other kind. This might take us to the conversation that we also had in the morning regarding the national team results. And the globalization and the business around football takes us to this point. We can't forget that Germany was world champion having 6 or 7 players from the same club. If clubs keep insisting in hiring Brazilians, Argentinians, Czechs, Italians, whatever, we'll all reach this point, bad results. As someone said, they don't care if England doesn't go to the World Cup, they don't care for England matches abroad. I also don't like my national team currently because Portuguese clubs keep spending money in other players due to, as you said, globalization,
They spend other people's money as well.
And they spend other people's money, obviously, and they don't give the opportunities to the young players. I'm not going to discuss if ones are better than the other ones. I'm not going to say that ones take more advantage of the opportunity that's given, but this takes us far more. What happens in the clubs and the business and the money that's walking around in the clubs will lead to good or bad results. This is, let's say, just a standard, because there are always exceptions. Brazilian was a World Cup world champion 12 years ago, and most of the players didn't play in Brazil. So I'm not saying that the players should play in the domestic championship, but this is a key feature. I give you the example of Portugal, just to finish. In the Euro 2004, in the first match, Scolari tried to do what he does best, stupid things, in tactics. In the second match, when he used the base from Mourinho's team against Russia, we won. And then we won against Spain. And then we went to the final, and due to lack of luck, we lost against Greece. You know?
But I presume, yeah, it makes sense to say that if you have a core from one club, then that probably helps the bond within a team.
And to be fair, the Bayern core is a natural development from what Germany put in place anyway. I mean, it is really the big lesson of the World Cup, but it's been the lesson for the last three tournaments. Do what Spain and Germany, and as you mentioned earlier on, Iceland, and Belgium perhaps, and to a degree Holland, they're the only countries in the past 2 decades to have actually undertaken this proper root and branch structure, or root and branch restructuring of their entire league. So it's something everyone should aspire to. England in particular should aspire to, because the wealth is there. I think the one issue with the Germans is that I think it's actually going to be hard to recreate in that sense, or it's going to be hard to recreate to their level because of the amount of economic power inherent in the country. And even with Bayern, for all the merit of the development, it's still one of the wealthiest clubs in Europe who have added on, multi-million-pound signings like Javi Martinez. They're starting to display economic power. But I suppose, yeah, as you mentioned, the lesson, I suppose, ultimately, yet again, is to get your structures right.
It's a bugbear of mine to say this idea that people say City and PSG are bad football because you can't ape that, you can't ape the Qatari fund coming in and giving loads of money, but you can't. Not every club can be buying, not every club can be Arsenal. It's always existed. Yeah.
It is becoming more polarised, I would say.
There's a question over there. Have we got a microphone? We do.
Shout.
He's coming behind you. Watch out. Feel like I'm in a pantomime.
You're right. Tom. Okay. Just a question with regards to the Premier League. Do you think there's in reflection to Germany winning the World Cup and the articles that I read, it said that, well, they only play 34 games in a season. They have a 3-week window, and all their young lads, 17, 19, 21, they play for their teams, and the clubs they represent, they let them go to play for their country. There's no injury, there's no tweaking. They actually get picked, selected, and they play at the various levels. So do you think that we could have a 3-week window, Christmas, January, no football, 34 season?
But if Qatar get the 2022 role, if they have it in winter, then that's exactly what would happen. We have a potentially that would be, we'd have to factor that into any of our future systems. So from then on, it's the one benefit I could always explain to English football fans, is that if that did happen, we would then have a permanent winter break. Although I'm not sure if the England team at this World Cup would look at that, Joe.
It probably wouldn't have hurt having a winter break, but I'm not sure it would have improved things massively.
Well, I think it cuts back to the reason why England can't yet do what Germany did, because whereas in Germany everything is unified towards one goal, and part of that is that the league and the national league and national team are some way working together. That's just not the case in England, where obviously there's a massive kind of split between the FA and the Premier League.
The English FA don't have the power to make that kind of reform.
And other Premier League clubs are going to vote for something that's going to affect their economic interests.
But the one thing I think we can all be sure of is that if you want the media, obviously the British media is always helpful because they sort of create obstacles to change, but the one thing all journalists would hope for is a 3-week break from all football.
Yeah.
We have time for one last question, and it's that one over there. There's a mic on its way.
Talk of winter break is fine maybe from the journalists and the players' point of view, but the Christmas and New Year period is the one that's most enjoyed by all the supporters. Now, get rid of the festive fixtures, even if it's just the Premier League, and you deprive people of the best time of the season. And I think people, without wanting to stress the point too much, wouldn't want to give up that part of the season, which is a really special part of the season, for the sake of anything else, England included.
I agree with you. I mean, it is unfortunate. I mean, I don't really cover English football, so when I go and watch English football, I go and buy a ticket and I go as a fan, and I can never go and watch West Ham, and I don't live in Essex, not too far away when I come home. For me, the Christmas fixtures are almost impossible because fans are treated so badly in terms of, like, nobody thinks about having an integrated transport, like what happens about timing the trains and stuff and the cost of things. So for me, unless you live next to the ground, it's impossible to do that. But I understand that it's such an important part. But I think that if there was a winter break, then why couldn't it happen after that? Why couldn't it be? Well, that is
But I think that there is a point that, as James was about to say, I don't think it has to be the case that if you have a winter break, you lose the Christmas fixtures. You could easily do it after the third round.
The German do it in January.
Yeah, the German one starts in January. James, you have the final word.
Yeah,
make it good.
Okay, but if it was a contributing factor rather than the factor to the national team perhaps doing better, because I don't think we all think a winter break would be the panacea to England's failings at a national team level, would you be in support of that, or is this whole debate just another example of clubs coming before country?
Ultimately, the lack of a winter break isn't the reason why England didn't do well. Right, fair enough, it might be some conditioning factor, but it's not the reason.
Which leads us on to our final question, which is just one for all three of you. How old will you be when England next win the World Cup? Which I know as an Irishman, you're really excited about.
Dead.
That could be related to his lifestyle.
I mean, there's a third intifada in the old thing. We're about to go into a new Cold War, so I don't know how many World Cups we've got left. But I mean, I would go EFA on this and say 2022, because I think there's probably going to be a massive boycott that happens in the summer. So maybe we'll get through with the only team that turns up.
There you go. That's something for Brent. Maybe that's what Brent meant.
I don't know what age, but I think we would do it. I never thought I'd see an English, Scottishman win Wimbledon. Or someone win the Tour de France from his part, and yet it's happened. It will happen eventually, probably in 125 years' time.
Well, that's a vaguely positive note to end on. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this has worked.